Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Again, I'm so grateful to have wonderful community healers here to discuss one of my favorite topics, mental health, which is certainly a necessity today. And my new friend, Eric Schleich, and I are in a tornado together. So right now when this airs, it won't be a tornado. We think it's passing. Yeah, we're fingers crossed, both of us. I just left the bathroom with Charlie Brown, and now we're here bringing this information about mental health. I could not want to spend a tornado with anybody than a therapist. So Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and we'll get through this.
We're going to get through this together. 2020, you got nothing on us, okay?
Oh, I'm telling you.
We're still here. So Eric is a licensed clinical social worker and a certified child life specialist, a certified grief recovery specialist. You use CBT, which is cognitive behavior therapy, within your practice. And you were mentioning to me right before we hit record today that that they were right about the predictions about October 1st being when you were going to feel the surge of mental health at an all-time high as the new pandemic. So
yeah.
Thank you for joining me. And if you would, please just tell the audience a little bit about you and your practice, and we'll dive in.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I split my time between a medical job in a medical facility and also a private practice. I've been in practice on my own for about 7 years, but working in the mental health field for about 18 years. I graduated locally here from University of South Florida, and pretty much continued, my career has mainly been focused on children, teens, and then later adults, but really focused on grief counseling, and then lately on substance recovery counseling. Grief is not just when a person dies. Grief is the loss of anything, the loss of home, the loss of a relationship, the loss of income, the loss of health and ability, the loss of friendships, the loss of jobs. So we often mistake some of that as just, oh, well, we'll just everyone just has to get over it. But really, when I start to help people name that this is what they're feeling is grief, it's almost like, a light bulb goes on, and they start to appreciate and honor some of the feelings that they're having. And during the pandemic, it has been really nothing but loss, and not just because of loss of life, but loss of safety, predictability, routine, just the things that kind of keep us going as human beings. We thrive on structure and routine, and that's kind of out the window, and we start to feel definitely out of sorts.
Yeah. So you noticed yourself a big switch in how busy you became, much like many of the therapists and psychiatrists and all healers in the mental health arena healing.
Yeah, I think in the beginning, we all kind of went into, this mode of, okay, we got to get our groceries, we got to get our toilet paper. We have to make sure we can work from home, or we have to apply for, we got to get our finances, or make sure we have everything. And for a while, that kept people just feeling very, very much in control and secure. And as time went on, people start getting fatigued. We are human, and we don't have a lot of patience or tolerance for these types of things to continue on as long as they have. So a lot of times people will do well for a while, and then just start to, okay, I don't know when this is going to end. And then we start predicting, like, am I going to lose my job? Am I going to have my home? How am I going to teach my kids? They're talking about masks till 2022, or whatever the media is saying. And then people start to get very anxious and depressed appropriately, because of the situation that we're in.
Sure. So I'm very interested in CBT. So not to be confused with CBD. We're talking about cognitive behavior therapy. Why don't you talk a little bit about how that has helped some of your patients in your practice?
Sure. So cognitive behavioral therapy, basically what it helps us do is it helps us to look at some of the automatic thoughts that we have when we're going through a stressful situation or something stressful is happening to us. So, for instance, if the situation is people are getting laid off at my job, somebody might think, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. I don't have any savings. How am I going to feed my kids? I'm behind on rent. I'm going to be homeless. And so it just kind of spirals like that. What we teach people to do is to look at the situation and really to evaluate and question those automatic thoughts that just pop into our head and better balance them. Now, some of them may be true, but a lot of times our predictions are not true or not true at all. Anxiety is built into us for a reason, and it is purposeful. We need it because it helps to warn us when there might be some trouble happening. So what it does is it paints the worst case scenario for us pretty much all the time so that we are paying attention to it and we're ready for anything that comes our way. Not knowing that the likelihood of like 99% of that stuff may not even come true. So what we do is we kind of go through a couple of questions that helps drill down how true or untrue those thoughts are, and then try to restructure the thought to something a little more positive and a little more realistic. They're not sugarcoating or saying, no, let's just think positive and positive vibes only. It's not that. It's really looking at a scary situation and maybe making that statement. So if it started off in the beginning, my example of I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to be homeless, all that, it could sound like when we're finished is, while I'm not sure about the future, I know today I have my job. I have not gotten any notice about any layoffs for my department. And these are some of the things that I know I have, at least for today or for the next 30 days. So it's just kind of bringing it into very, very much to trimming down the worries that are out here to worrying about just kind of what's in front of us or what we really have control over.
Right. I love that. I just had this conversation last night. Somebody asked me a question about the future. And I said, what I was taught 26 years ago when I got sober, which I'm so grateful that I have this tool for myself, is that I can't control. I'm only responsible for the effort. And I really have to practice being in the now. And that's what that really sounds like, a great practice of breaking down the reality of now. Because it's very anxiety. Just hearing you talk about that, I'm like, oh, yeah. If we spend all the time doing that.
These are scenarios that clients are bringing to sessions, and I could go on and on with lots about health, about will we ever get together as a family? Will my job will I be stuck at home working all the time? So just this very all or nothing type of thinking, and that can be a trap for us too, is just to get into that. So that was just one brief example of CBT. There are a lot of different facets to it, but that might be the easiest way for your audience to understand that.
Yeah, and I think most important to think about that now, not being able to control what happens, just being responsible for ourselves,
Yeah,
And
it's important to recognize that there are things we can't control, but there are things we can. And it's harder to focus on the things we can control. We have to actually make ourselves think about it. So it could be just as easy as I'll go to bed early tonight because I've been really tired. I'm not going to scroll Facebook or watch TV. I'll go to bed early and I'll wake up hopefully feeling a little better. Or, I might decide to go for a walk in the morning. Or I've got control over what I cook my kids for dinner tonight. These are little things, and some people might be like, well, who cares about that stuff? But if you do it, it gets you out of the future and the past thinking. And for those few minutes or however long you're doing that activity, you are grounded in the moment.
Yeah. I mean, we are living in the moment right now. We think the tornado passed. While you were talking, I was watching the wind blow, and but I'm very soothed thinking about what can I control right now. I certainly can't control the weather. I mean, if that's what we can't control the weather. But we've really been put to the test in 2020. We really, all of us, as a world, not even as a nation, as the entire globe is feeling it. So for the audience, what would you say has been um, the constant, I would assume it's anxiety, and then some tools maybe just to offer besides, the cognitive behavior therapy.
Yeah. Well, I want people to normalize that the symptoms they're feeling probably aren't related to the medications and things they see on TV. So a lot of mental health diagnoses require a lot of criteria, time frames, symptoms to be diagnosed and then treated either with therapy or medication. Situational, that's the word. Situational anxiety or situational depression is what most people are feeling. And
Yeah.
it's appropriate that people are feeling both of those. So, for one, don't label this as a problem or a defect or a character flaw, or I'm going to be depressed my whole life and maybe I'm going to be like those people on TV and they have to keep taking medication. We're supposed to have some symptoms of depression and anxiety right now because of what we're going through.
Sure.
Um, I think that's the first thing to do is to normalize your experience for yourself and also remind yourself that you are not alone at all. Most human beings are facing some type of this, and it comes from uncertainty and the future not being what we used to think it was. So my suggestion is practice self-compassion. Make sure that you're giving yourself some of that because I'm just going to say this is hard. I mean, it's hard for us on this side of the screen. And when we're working with clients, I mean, we're having to do our own work around this. And in my career, I've never experienced where clients are bringing almost the exact same feelings that I'm having to a session. And
Mm.
so we have to really stay in our lane, but also take care of ourselves. But sometimes it helps for me to say, I've been having my neck has been really tense, or I'll toss and turn at night thinking about the future tomorrow. And sometimes they're just like, oh, okay, good. So just we're normalizing some of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Greatest connection is to share that humility, right? And the experience that
absolutely.
we're all having so people
Yeah.
don't feel so alone.
Well, sharing with trusted people,
Yeah.
admitting that you don't have it all together, which in America, we're kind of, our culture is, everybody for their own almost all the time. And we got this together, we don't have problems. We'll pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and let ourselves know that, it's okay if I'm hurting or I'm stressed or worried. And maybe I can find somebody to talk to about that. Taking good care of yourself physically, eating right, trying to avoid overuse of substances, which has been a unfortunate consequence right now. And I'm seeing a lot more people entering treatment for substance use disorders or developing ones.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, when you
it's
look
short.
today at what the most what the most searched item has been is alcohol delivery near me.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's not helping.
Not helping people.
I mean, I guess for some people it's helping, but for people
Sure.
who might be susceptible to addiction, it's kind
Mhm.
of the perfect storm,
Yeah,
for that.
absolutely.
Um,
Let me ask you a question, Eric, because you mentioned
sure.
that, I've been having great conversations with so many healers throughout the community and beyond. And
Mhm.
I always want to know what your daily practice is yourself, because I do believe, as I already know that you believe that healers need healing. So
Yes.
what is it? What do you do for yourself as like a mental health workout?
Yeah. Well, I make sure that I sleep
Yeah,
well. I make sure that I'm not over scheduling myself.
good for you.
I make sure that whatever goal I have, I make sure it's realistic. This isn't the time to be setting extremely lofty goals because
Yeah.
when we don't meet them, we feel maybe worse, more depressed. So making sure that is eating right, limiting, and this is a practice for me, limiting my exposure to social media and TV,
Yes.
stepping away from that, allowing myself breaks, spending time in nature, like just being around trees, nature, parks, definitely does a lot for us as far as it being a calming and more centering type of activity. Doing something fun, playing with the dogs, taking them for a walk, cooking, preparing meals, things like that. But really, hands down, what's gotten me through this is reaching out to other people
Mm.
and saying, you know what, I'm tired of this. I'm sick of it. I want it to go away. I would love to just go see a movie without having to worry about it. Or, life just seems like we're kind of on this treadmill, and helping professionals feel that too. We're not immune and we're not on some pedestal like that. So when I hear other people say, yeah, I felt that way too, I've been really frustrated or maybe snappy with my spouse or whatever, then you're like, oh, okay, well, I was too. I don't feel as bad or, upset that I'm acting like this.
Yeah, I
So,
think that's so great. I just interviewed Thomas Young, who's another therapist in
mhm,
CC, and the first thing that he mentioned, like you, was sleep. I don't think
mhm,
that we talk about that enough. It's so important, and I love that you said
very,
you were scheduling. It was like you were talking to me right there at that
mhm,
moment. Like, okay, I'm going to take note of that because I put a lot of pressure on myself as a business owner, and I
mhm,
need to be aware of that. And the goals, right, that you just said, every
mhm,
October of every year that I've been in business on my own for 7 years, I've always made my list of goals for the next year in October. Well,
mhm.
it's November and I still haven't made them.
Yeah, perfect example.
Right, and I'm going to be okay
Yeah,
with that. I'm going to be
yeah,
okay with that. I'm not going, no extra
yeah.
pressure this year. I mean, Eric, we're in a tornado.
We're in a tornado on top of a pandemic, on top of the holiday season, on top
Oh,
of everything else. It's
yes,
trifecta here.
it really is. Adversity
So
at its finest.
sometimes a big part of unhappiness can be just unmet expectations of what we think we're supposed to be doing,
Yeah.
and some of this is just driven by our society, which is productivity, work, 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 that kind of a thing. And I remember having a session with a client who a light bulb moment was, I've still been expecting myself to be as productive as I was before the pandemic. And I said, well, what's different now? And she said, I don't go to my office. I haven't seen my colleagues in 9 months. I get spotty internet reception. All I do is stare at a screen. I'm not motivated. All of those things that she's like, now I know why it's been such a struggle. But she was measuring her current productivity to that of the past. And it's really important just to kind of say, that's the past. This is now. It's a kind of a new normal right now. And it's okay to take your 100% bar and put it down to 50 and let that be your 100% for the day, because
Yeah.
this is not anything anybody's really lived through. We don't know how
Well,
to.
Eric, you know what I did yesterday? I took myself to nature's. There's like an organic store that I have. I'm addicted to everything. I'm addicted
Mhm,
to Tic Tacs. I've gone through many addictions myself. But I really love these mixed nuts. Now that doesn't
mhm,
even sound like a bad thing, right? But for me,
mhm,
it's like I could really eat too many of them. So I
mhm,
allowed myself to have them yesterday,
mhm.
and it felt like such a relief to just go, it's okay.
It's okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Good
So I've been going to bed with a couple scoops of ice cream per night,
for
and
you, Eric.
I've just been okay with that, because normally I'd be like, no, 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 I gotta be careful and this and that. But sometimes that's just a way. That's also practicing self care, of course, within reason.
Sure.
But it does let us say, let's not sweat everything too much all the time. Like some things I'm okay to just throw to the wind,
Yeah.
you know,
We have to let some of
temporarily.
the small things go a little
Yeah,
bit right now. I
yeah.
think that it seems so practical, but it's so helpful for me to hear. And I'm sure it's so helpful for many others that are just really trying to,
Mhm.
we went through this whole phase of everybody talked about gaining the COVID-19.
Yeah.
Right. And then we go back into the workouts and try to get better. But really, we're still in such an extreme, stressful time that
Yeah.
we're not here to advocate for you going down and having like the biggest Sunday ever every night. But right. But treat yourself every
Right.
once in a while.
Treat yourself.
Treat
Exactly.
yourself. I love it. Well, Eric, I really appreciate you being here today. I love that you
Sure.
offer these alternatives. I'm a huge fan of sure, if medication is what you think a physician thinks that you should have, but I really love the introduction of alternatives. We do have alternatives because
Mhm.
medication isn't supposed to be something that we depend upon for the rest of our lives. But so these other cognitive behavior therapies and
Mhm.
discussions about, grief and trauma, we really
Mhm.
need to talk these things through, especially now.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought up the word trauma, because that's what we're feeling collectively.
Yeah.
Um, and I think we need to destigmatize that word. It's not just for going through a war or anything like that. This is trauma.
Hmm.
This is trauma, and to be okay seeking help for that.
Yeah. Trauma, I call them little baby traumas being thrown at us all over
Yeah,
the place, right?
yeah.
It was a little baby trauma in my bathroom with Charlie Brown not too long ago, right? And I'm like,
My
whoa,
dog, my dogs are under the bed right now,
oh, that's so funny.
with their little trauma. So
Right. I was just like, just watch Charlie Brown. You're going to be fine. If he starts to
yeah,
freak out, then be worried. Depend upon my dog for that. But
yeah.
honestly, like we've been hit with so much. So I think it's been a great message
Mm,
that you have
mhm.
really displayed. Like we really need to take it easy on ourselves.
We have to be good to ourselves now more than ever. Now
Yeah.
more than ever.
So go get therapy.
Yes, yes.
Even if Eric is busy, wait, right? He'll be available eventually, just like this
Yes.
recording was today. We're all
Yeah,
we. I like to switch the conversation around. Like when somebody says that they don't go to therapy, I'm like, oh, what's wrong with
yeah.
you? You know?
Well, the stigma is getting better, but if
Good.
one thing the coronavirus did is it brought mental health to the forefront, which we've never really been used to being in. So it's a little strange, but also it's kind of like, okay, cool, we finally get to toot our own horn.
Yes.
Um,
It's been such
yeah,
a relief. If I did not have my dad's EAP counselor when I was 21, I wrote an
yeah,
chapter about him.
yep.
He asked me that question, which I always say when given the opportunity. He asked me if I was having suicidal thoughts. And it was that moment that I was freed from that isolation and the work
Mhm.
and the help began. So
Yep.
we need you. We need you,
Yes. Yeah.
especially now.
And I'm glad you mentioned EAP, which is Employee Assistance Program. Some jobs will offer that, and it's typically a short-term 3 to 6 session model, but there's no diagnosis required, and it's typically covered 100% by the person's employer. But medical insurance, can be accessed as well. And there are also some either low cost or lower cost options for people who are underinsured mental health wise or uninsured.
Yes, and there's some free great resources out there. I always mention NAMI and
Mhm.
Tampa Bay Crisis Center and Celebrate Recovery, and there's recovery
Mhm.
programs online. But
Yeah,
if you could do yourself one great thing through the holiday season before that virtual turkey shows up, talk to somebody. Talk to
yes.
somebody if you're struggling. So, Eric, thank you so much for going through this
Thank you.
tornado with me. I will
Thank you.
never forget it.
We're still here.
We're still here. You can't
Uh,
get us 2020. We won't go down easy. It was such
uh,
a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
So don't forget, if you mention that you have seen the show or listened to the podcast, Thai Technology, 3 months for free.